Gunfire ripped across the Hindu Kush Mountains, forcing Lieutenant Jack Reeves face down into the frozen dirt. His lungs burned with each shallow breath as Taliban rounds shredded the air inches above his head. Fox Squad, just 4 operators cut off for nearly 70 hours. No extraction, no support. Enemy rifles tightening from the high ground. The radio at his shoulder crackled with static. Dead air for the 3rd straight hour. Reeves pressed the transmit button again, his voice hoarse. Razor Actual, this is Fox Leader. We are surrounded, taking heavy fire. Request immediate extraction. Over. Only static answered. The February wind howled through the narrow pass, carrying the distant shouts of Taliban fighters closing their net. Reeves glanced at his team, their faces streaked with dirt and exhaustion. 72 hours ago, they had been the elite of the elite SEAL Team's 6 operators with a straightforward extraction mission. Now they were prey. In desperation, Reeves reached for his secondary radio, the one Hargrove had insisted they carry. An ancient PRC-90 with a single frequency crystal installed. The ghost channel, Hargrove had called it, a relic from the Cold War, supposedly dead for decades. This is insanity, he muttered, keying the mic. Fox Squad requesting assistance on Ghost Channel. We are compromised and surrounded. For 5 heartbeats, nothing. Then the impossible happened. A woman's voice steady and cold as the mountain air cut through the static. Lieutenant Reeves, if you move now, you'll be dead in 7 seconds. Reeves froze, heart hammering against his ribs. Who is this? How do you say? 6 Taliban fighters on the ridge to your north, 2 with ARP, 1 sniper at your 2 o'clock, range 800 meters. Stay down. Before Reeves could respond, a single rifle shot echoed across the valley, distant but distinct from the Taliban's AK fire. The sniper position at his 2 o'clock went silent instantly. Reeves raised his scope a fraction, just enough to verify. Through the wavering heat lines, he saw the Taliban sniper slumped forward, his rifle tumbling down the rocky slope. Jesus Christ, whispered Donovan beside him, eyes wide with disbelief. The woman's voice returned, devoid of emotion. Move your team east through the drainage culvert. You have 58 seconds before their patrol reaches your position. Who the hell are you? Reeves demanded. The reply was simple and impossible: ghost spotter. 72 hours earlier, the briefing room at Bagram Air Base hummed with the quiet efficiency of men preparing for war. Maps of the Hindu Kush Mountains covered one wall, satellite imagery on another. The air smelled of coffee and gun oil. Lieutenant Jack Reeves stood at the head of the table, his weathered face a map of 42 hard-lived years. Desert Storm, Bosnia, Somalia. His eyes carried the weight of battles won and lost, particularly the shadows of Somalia that still haunted him. 8 men lost under his command in an extraction gone wrong. The official report called it enemy action of unexpected intensity. Jack knew better. There had been a leak, an ambush precisely orchestrated, but he'd never been able to prove it, and the ghosts of those men followed him into every mission since. Fox Squad, he began, his voice carrying the natural authority of a career SEAL. Our mission is straightforward. Extraction of a high-value American asset from Taliban custody. He tapped a satellite image showing a compound nestled in the mountains. Dr. William Harrington, nuclear physicist, captured 3 weeks ago while consulting with our energy team in Kabul. Intel suggests he's being held here approximately 40 miles northeast of our position. Mike Donovan, the team's communications specialist, leaned forward. At 38, Donovan was a study in controlled precision. His movements economical, his words measured. The man had been through Bosnia's worst yet. His ice-blue eyes revealed nothing of those horrors. Opposing forces, he asked, making notes in a small waterproof notebook. Intelligence estimates 20 to 30 Taliban fighters, possibly members of the Phantom Cell faction. Sarah Reynolds, positioned at the far end of the table, arched an eyebrow. Phantom Cell, I thought they were a myth. At 35, Reynolds was an anomaly, the only woman in SEAL Team 6, part of a controversial pilot program born in the Pentagon's darkest corners. Her presence was a constant source of tension, despite her impeccable record as a sniper, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 17 confirmed kills. Still, some men looked at her and saw only the wrong gender in the wrong place. Very real, Reeves replied. Former Al-Qaeda who split off to form their own cell, led by Dmitry Volkov. Jason Torres, the team's heavy weapons specialist, whistled low. The KGB guy thought he died after the wall fell. Ex-KGB, Reeves corrected, and very much alive. Torres at 29 was the youngest and most volatile of the team. Built like a linebacker with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, he carried both his M4 and his opinions with absolute confidence. His loyalty to the team, however, was beyond question. Extraction plan, Reynolds asked, studying the topographic maps with professional detachment. Reeves outlined the operation with practiced efficiency. Halo jump at 0200, 4-mile hike to the compound. Extraction of the asset under cover of darkness. Helicopter pickup at the primary extraction point by 0530. Clean quiet by the book, Reeves concluded. The briefing room door opened and conversation stopped as Command Master Chief Williams entered, followed by a tall figure that made even Reeves straighten instinctively. Colonel Richard Hargrove stood framed in the doorway, his 6'3" frame still ramrod straight despite his 68 years. His silver hair was cropped in a military cut unchanged since Vietnam, where he'd led one of the first SEAL teams into the Mekong Delta. His chest, even in casual fatigues, seemed designed for the weight of medals he'd earned over 3 decades of service. "Gentlemen," Williams announced unnecessarily, "Colonel Hargrove." Hargrove's presence at Bagram was unexpected. The man was a living legend and retired for 15 years, yet still maintaining enough clout to walk into any military installation in the world. "At ease," Hargrove said, voice like gravel over steel. His eyes swept the room, settling briefly on each face before focusing on Reeves. "Lieutenant, I need a word with your team." After Williams departed, Hargrove closed the door and moved to the maps with the natural authority of a man who had been reading military terrain since before most of them were born. "Your mission parameters have changed," he began without preamble. "Dr. Harrington is not just any physicist. He was the lead scientist on the miniaturized nuclear initiative." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The MNI was a Cold War relic, a classified program to develop tactical nuclear devices small enough to fit in a briefcase. Officially, it had been shuttered in 1908. Unofficially, the rumors persisted. The program was supposedly deactivated, Reynolds said, voicing what everyone was thinking. Hargrove's weathered face tightened. "Nothing ever truly ends in our line of work, Sergeant Reynolds, especially the dangerous things." He tapped the satellite image of the compound. Harrington wasn't in Afghanistan by accident. He was overseeing the dismantling of certain legacy technologies we'd rather not have falling into the wrong hands. "And Phantom Cell wants these technologies," Reeves concluded. "Volkov doesn't want the technology itself," Hargrove corrected. "He wants the knowledge in Harrington's head, how to build it, how to deploy it, how to ensure we can never stop it." Torres shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, with respect, why are you briefing us personally? This seems well above our pay grade." The question hung in the air. Hargrove's presence transformed a standard extraction into something far more significant. "Because I know Volkov," Hargrove said finally, "fought against his operations for 20 years during the Cold War. If he's involved, this is no ordinary kidnapping." He withdrew an ancient radio from his pack, a Vietnam-era PRC-90 survival radio modified with custom frequency crystals. "Each of you will carry one of these as secondary comms. They're tuned to a frequency we called the Ghost Channel during the Cold War, a frequency we use for our deepest cover operators behind the Iron Curtain." Donovan accepted one of the radios, examining it with professional curiosity. "This tech is ancient, sir. Hasn't been used in, 30 years? "Precisely why it might save your lives," Hargrove replied. "Modern communications are compromised. Phantom Cell has sophisticated jamming and interception capabilities. But he held up the radio. "These operate on a frequency no one monitors anymore." "No one except you," Reynolds observed shrewdly. Hargrove's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "These are for emergency use only, if everything goes sideways and you have no other options." He placed 4 radios on the table, then unfolded a weathered map that had clearly seen decades of use. Unlike their satellite imagery, this was hand-drawn in certain sections with notations in faded ink. "There's something else you should know about the area you are heading into. The locals call it the Widow's Valley. During the Soviet occupation, an entire Spetsnaz unit disappeared there. Later, when we were arming the Mujahideen, we lost a CIA team in the same region." Torres leaned forward. "Taliban ambush." "Unknown," Hargrove said. The investigation was classified, then buried. This was 1987, height of the Cold War. Some things were deemed better left alone. He pointed to a specific mountain peak marked with a faded X. If everything fails, get to this position. It's called Widow's Peak by locals. Defensible terrain with clear lines of sight. If you need to make a stand, that's where you do it. Reeves studied the colonel's face, recognizing the look of a man not telling the whole story. Sir, what aren't you telling us about this mission? Hargrove's weathered face remained impassive, but his eyes held something Reeves couldn't quite identify. Regret, anticipation. You're going into the personal hunting grounds of Dmitry Volkov, Lieutenant. The man is 70 years old and still the most dangerous adversary I've ever faced. He doesn't take prisoners for intelligence or ransom. He takes them to make examples. He tapped the map again, his finger resting on Widow's Peak. And one more thing. If you find yourselves using these radios, if you find yourselves on that peak, you may encounter a ghost from the past, someone we all thought was long dead. Reynolds folded her arms. You're speaking in riddles, Colonel. During the Cold War, Hargrove continued, ignoring her comment. There were rumors among special operators, stories about a guardian angel of sorts, a sniper of unusual skill who appeared when missions went catastrophically wrong. Torres snorted. Ghost stories to keep up morale. Perhaps, Hargrove conceded. The CIA had a program called Artemis in the early 80s. Female snipers deployed in deep cover operations where male operators would be immediately identified. The program was officially terminated in 1980. All operatives were listed as killed in action or reassigned. Officially, Reeves noted the qualification. Hargrove's eyes met his. The most exceptional of them was a Marine named Elizabeth Carter, Olympic-level marksmanship before recruitment, trained in advanced ballistics capable of shots most considered impossible. I've studied every notable sniper in military history, Reynolds said. Never heard of her. That was the point, Sergeant. Her existence was classified beyond top secret. Her missions never happened. Her kills were never recorded. And you're telling us this now because... Donovan prompted. Hargrove collected his things with deliberate movements. Because if you find yourselves in a situation so dire that you're using these radios so desperate that you're making your stand on Widow's Peak, and if you hear a woman's voice offering assistance, trust it. And so the briefing room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Sir, Reeves said finally, are you suggesting this Elizabeth Carter is still alive? Still operating? After all this time, Hargrove paused at the door, his expression unreadable. I'm suggesting, Lieutenant, that not everything that disappears is truly gone. 12 hours later, Fox Squad was airborne in a Black Hawk helicopter thundering through the night sky toward their insertion point. Each operator sat lost in their own pre-mission ritual. Donovan checking communications equipment for the third time. Torres running his thumb along the edge of his combat knife. Reynolds performing minute adjustments to her rifle scope. Reeves watched his team while reviewing the mission parameters in his mind. The colonel's warnings had cast a shadow over what should have been a straightforward extraction. The ancient radios felt like lead weights in their PAX talismans from another era. 5 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced through the intercom. Reeves performed a final equipment check. The helicopter banked sharply to navigate the mountain terrain, its powerful rotors struggling against the thin air of high altitude. The first RPG streaked through the darkness without warning, a bright flash followed by the sickening lurch of impact. The Black Hawk shuddered violently, alarms shrieking through the cabin. The second RPG struck the tail rotor, and the world dissolved into chaos. Brace for impact, the pilot shouted, fighting the controls as the helicopter began to spin. The mountainside rushed up to meet them, a blur of rock and snow in the glow of the burning engine. The pilot in his final act managed to level the helicopter enough to prevent a direct nosedive. The impact came in waves, the initial crash metal screaming against rock. Then the secondary collision as the helicopter skidded across the mountainside. Finally, the terrible silence broken only by the hiss of hydraulic fluid and the crackle of flames. Reeves regained consciousness to the taste of blood and aviation fuel. The cabin was filled with smoke illuminated by the orange glow of fire. Through the shattered windshield, he could see the pilots, their bodies limp against their harnesses. Sound off, he croaked, struggling with his safety restraints. Reynolds operational. Her voice came from the rear, followed by movement in the smoke. Torres, I'm good. A cough, then more movement. Donovan, banged up but functioning. Reeves freed himself from his harness and moved toward the rear of the aircraft. We need to move. Now, before this thing becomes a beacon. They extracted themselves from the wreckage, dragging their essential gear in the emergency medical kit. The February air bit at their faces as they established a defensive perimeter 30 meters from the crash site. Comms check, Reeves ordered. Donovan tried the radio, receiving only static across all channels. Primary comms are down, either equipment failure or jamming. GPS negative, no satellite acquisition. Reeves consulted his backup compass and map. Based on our flight path and crash trajectory, we're approximately 15 miles northwest of the target compound. Reynolds scanned the darkness through her night vision. Sir, we have movement. Multiple heat signatures approaching from the south. Likely a Taliban patrol responding to the crash. How many? I count 8, no 12 distinct signatures. They'll have more coming, Torres added grimly. That crash lit up the mountainside like the 4th of July. Reeves made a rapid assessment. Their mission parameters had fundamentally changed. The element of surprise was gone. They were in hostile territory with no communications and no extraction plan. We push forward, he decided. The mission remains. We reach the compound, extract Harrington, and make for the secondary extraction point. The team moved out, navigating the treacherous mountain terrain under cover of darkness. The Hindu Kush was unforgiving in February, with temperatures dropping well below freezing and unpredictable weather patterns that could trap even experienced mountaineers. 3 hours of difficult travel brought them to a sheltered position overlooking a small valley. Dawn was approaching the eastern sky, lightening to a deep purple. We'll hold here until nightfall, Reeves ordered. Reynolds take first watch. Torres set up a defensive perimeter. Donovan keep trying to establish communications. As the others moved to their tasks, Reeves unfolded Hargrove's map, studying the marked position of Widow's Peak. It lay to the northeast, a natural fortress rising from the mountainous terrain, a last resort that he hoped they wouldn't need. Dawn broke over the mountains, revealing the stark beauty of the Hindu Kush. Jagged peaks stretched in every direction, their slopes dotted with ancient pine forests and deep ravines. In another context, it might have been breathtaking. Now it was simply terrain to be navigated, with each ridge a potential threat. Reynolds approached her movement silent, even on the rocky ground. Movement in the valley, she reported. 3 vehicles, military pattern, heading toward the compound. Reeves raised his binoculars. 3 Soviet-era UAZ jeeps bounced along the crude mountain road, each carrying armed men. But it was the figure in the lead vehicle that drew his attention. An older man with a distinctive white beard, his bearing unmistakably military despite his civilian clothes. Volkov, Reeves murmured. Reynolds adjusted her rifle scope, studying the Russian. Doesn't look like much. Hard to believe that's the boogeyman Hargrove warned us about. The most dangerous predators rarely do. The convoy disappeared around a bend in the road, heading toward the compound where Harrington was supposedly being held. Change of plans, Reeves decided. We move now. If Volkov is personally involved, the timeline has accelerated. They traversed the difficult terrain with the practiced efficiency of elite operators, covering ground that would challenge experienced mountaineers. By mid-afternoon, they had reached an observation point overlooking the target compound. The structure was typical of the region, a former Soviet outpost repurposed and reinforced. Stone walls surrounded a central courtyard with guard towers at each corner. Reeves counted at least 15 armed men patrolling the perimeter, with likely more inside. Donovan, any luck with comms? Reeves asked, not taking his eyes from the compound. Negative, sir. All channels remain jammed. No contact with base. We're on our own then. Reeves studied the compound layout, formulating and discarding plans. We'll wait until Aero 100 hours. Guard changes should occur around midnight, creating a window of opportunity. As darkness fell, the temperature plummeted. The team huddled in their cold weather gear, conserving energy and preparing equipment for the night assault. Reynolds methodically cleaned her rifle bolt, a pre-mission ritual unchanged since her first deployment. You don't believe it, do you? Torres asked suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. Believe what? Reynolds replied, not looking up from her work. Hargrove's ghost story, the woman sniper who appears when missions go south. Reynolds chambered around the metallic click, punctuating the silence. I believe in what I can see through my scope. Everything else is distraction. My first deployment, Kandahar 2002, Torres continued undeterred. Our squad got pinned down in a village surrounded by Taliban. No extraction, no support. Then three shots from nowhere, three Taliban commanders down. Perfect shots over 800 meters in high wind. Good sniper doing their job, Reynolds said dismissively. We never found out who it was. No snipers were deployed in our sector. Reeves interjected, his voice quiet but firm. Focus on the mission at hand. We move in 4 hours. The minutes crawled by as they observed the compound's security patterns. Reeves noted guard rotations, blind spots, and defensive weaknesses. A professional assessment, methodical and thorough. At 2300 hours, everything changed. A new convoy arrived at the compound, headlights cutting through the darkness. More vehicles, more men, and something else, equipment being unloaded under heavy guard. That's not good, Donovan murmured, observing through night vision. Reeves focused his binoculars. The equipment looked medical in nature. Monitoring devices. A specialized chair with restraints. Interrogation equipment, he concluded grimly. They're preparing to extract information from Harrington. We need to move now, Reynolds urged, before they start. The tactical situation had deteriorated significantly. More guards, increased activity, and the clear indication that Harrington's torture was imminent. Agreed. New plan. Torres, we need a diversion on the eastern perimeter. Something loud enough to draw attention without immediately screaming, American Special Forces. Torres grinned, patting his pack. I've got just the thing. Reynolds find an overwatch position with clear lines on the main entrance and guard towers. Donovan, you're with me. We breached through the south wall during the confusion. The team moved with practiced efficiency, separating to their assigned positions. The night wrapped around them, the only sound the whisper of the wind through the mountain pines. Torres planted his improvised explosives, a combination of C4 and fuel from their emergency supplies, at a fuel depot on the eastern edge of the compound. The resulting explosion would appear as an accident, buying precious seconds of confusion. Reynolds established her position on a rocky outcrop 200 meters from the compound, her rifle steady on its bipod. From her vantage point, she could cover both the main entrance and the primary guard towers. Reeves and Donovan approached the southern wall, breaching charges prepared. The wall's construction, Soviet-era reinforced concrete, would require precise placement. 30 seconds, Torres confirmed over their short-range tactical radios, the only communications still functioning. Reeves steadied his breathing, mentally reviewing the compound layout one final time. In 30 seconds, they would commit fully. No turning back, no reinforcements, no extraction plan beyond their own abilities. The eastern sky erupted in a ball of flame, the explosion sending a shockwave rolling across the compound. Guards shouted in alarm, running toward the conflagration. The diversion worked perfectly, creating the chaos they needed. Breaching, Reeves announced, activating the shaped charge on the southern wall. The controlled explosion blew a hole large enough for a man to pass through. Reeves entered first, MP5 submachine guns sweeping the interior space. Donovan followed, covering their rear. They encountered the first guard just inside, a young Taliban fighter barely out of his teens. Reeves dispatched him silently with a knife to the throat, lowering the body without a sound. The compound's interior was a maze of corridors and rooms, once designed to house Soviet military personnel. Reeves navigated by memory, following the mental map he'd constructed during mission briefing. Two tangos approaching from the right, Donovan whispered. Reeves raised his fist, signaling a halt. They pressed themselves against the wall as two armed men passed the adjacent corridor, speaking rapidly in Pashto. They're moving the prisoner, Donovan translated, his linguistic skills proving invaluable once again. To a vehicle. They're evacuating Harrington, Reeves realized. Our window is closing. They move faster now, sacrificing stealth for speed. Turning a corner, they encountered three guards. The resulting firefight was brief but noisy, undermining their tactical advantage. Reynolds' status on the courtyard. Reeves requested, reloading his weapon. 6 guards moving in tactical formation toward your position, she reported calmly. 2 down, 4 remaining. Her rifle cracked twice in rapid succession, the sound echoing across the compound. 4 down. Torres, rendezvous at the central building, Reeves ordered. They're moving Harrington. We need to intercept. They converged on the central courtyard just as Harrington was being escorted to an awaiting vehicle. The physicist was immediately recognizable from his briefing photos, though his appearance had deteriorated. His face was bruised, his clothing torn and bloodied. Contact front, Torres called out, engaging three fighters emerging from the main building. The courtyard erupted in gunfire. Reeves and Donovan used a low wall for cover, returning fire while advancing toward Harrington. Reynolds provided covering fire from her elevated position, her rifle methodically eliminating the most threatening targets. "To Harrington," Reeves called out, "U.S. Navy SEALs, we're here to extract you." The scientist's head jerked up, eyes wide with disbelief and hope. What happened next occurred with the devastating speed that characterizes modern combat. A new group of fighters emerged from the eastern building, cutting off their escape route. Simultaneously, the main gate opened, admitting three more vehicles filled with armed men. "We're surrounded," Donovan reported, his voice clinical, despite the dire situation. Through the chaos, Reeves spotted Volkov observing from a second-floor window, his expression calm as he directed the encirclement. "Reynolds, can you get a shot on the HVT? Second floor, central window," Reeves requested. "Negative. No angle, too many obstructions." Reeves made a rapid tactical assessment. They were outnumbered at least 5-1 with more hostiles arriving. Their mission had transformed from extraction to survival. "Fall back to position, Echo," he ordered, using their pre-planned emergency protocol. "Reynolds, cover our retreat." They fought their way to Harrington, Torres laying down suppressive fire while Donovan secured the scientist. The man could barely walk, requiring support to move. "They've been questioning me," Harrington gasped, his voice weak. "For days." "Save your strength," Reeves advised, firing a short burst at approaching fighters. "We're getting you out." The extraction turned into a fighting retreat, each team member covering the others as they withdrew through the breach in the southern wall. Reynolds continued to provide overwatch, her rifle eliminating anyone who presented a clear threat to the retreating team. Once outside the compound, they moved rapidly into the surrounding forest, using the darkness and terrain for concealment. The sounds of pursuit followed, shouted orders, vehicles starting, the distinctive bark of AK-47s fired in their general direction. They reached their emergency rally point 2 kilometers from the compound, a sheltered ravine that offered both concealment and defensive positioning. Harrington collapsed against a tree, his breathing labored. "Status report," Reeves demanded, establishing a defensive perimeter. "I'm operational," Torres reported, reloading his weapon. Same, Donovan added, already attempting to establish communications with their secondary radio. Reynolds arrived last, moving like a shadow through the trees. "We have pursuit, multiple groups spreading out in search patterns, professionally organized." Reeves turned his attention to Harrington. The physicist's condition was concerning, dehydrated, malnourished, and showing signs of physical torture. "Dr. Harrington, we need to move soon. What's your physical status?" Harrington attempted to straighten, wincing with pain. "I'll manage. You have no idea what they wanted from me." "The miniaturized nuclear initiative," Reeves said. "We know." Surprise flickered across the scientist's face. "Then you know why they can't capture me again. The technology, it can't fall into their hands." Donovan approached, his expression grim. "Still no comms. All channels jammed or disrupted." Reeves considered their options, none of them good. They were deep in hostile territory, pursued by a superior force with no communications and an injured VIP. "And we make for the secondary extraction point," he decided. 26 kilometers northeast. "If we push through the night, we can reach it by tomorrow evening." Reynolds consulted her map. "Sir, that route takes us directly through the most challenging terrain in the region. With Dr. Harrington's condition, it's also the path they're least likely to expect," Reeves countered. "The primary routes will be watched." A sudden explosion lit up the night sky behind them, the compound's ammunition store detonating in the fire Torres had started. The momentary illumination revealed Harrington's face clearly for the first time, and what Reeves saw troubled him deeply. Beyond the physical injuries, the man's eyes held the hollow look of someone who had revealed more than they intended. "Dr. Harrington," Reeves said quietly. "What did you tell them?" The physicist's eyes dropped. "Nothing, at first." He swallowed hard. "Then they brought in a Russian, older man, white beard. He knew things, details about the program that weren't in any file." "Volkov," Torres muttered. "He knew exactly what questions to ask. And he had this device." Harrington's hand went to his side, where a small bandage was visible through his torn shirt. Reeves lifted the fabric, revealing a recent incision approximately 3 inches long, crudely stitched. "They put something inside me," Harrington whispered. "He said it was insurance, that they could find me anywhere." A tracking device. Donovan realized immediately, activating an electronic countermeasures device from his pack. We need to remove it, now. No time, Reeves decided. They're already on our trail. We move now, deal with the tracker when we have distance. They began their desperate journey through the mountains, the sounds of pursuit growing behind them. Harrington struggled to keep pace, requiring assistance on the steeper sections. The Hindu Kush showed no mercy. Steep slopes, treacherous footing, and temperatures that dropped dangerously as they gained elevation. By dawn, they had covered only 8 kilometers, far less than Reeves had hoped. They established a temporary hide in a dense stand of pines, Donovan attempting once more to establish communications. Try the ghost channel, Torres suggested, half-joking, as he nodded toward the ancient PRC-90 radios they still carried. Donovan shook his head. Hargrove's ghost story won't save us now. Reeves, however, removed the old radio from his pack, studying it thoughtfully. Desperation often made the impossible seem reasonable. "Sir, you can't be serious," Reynolds said, observing his actions. "We've exhausted conventional options." Reeves replied, simply activating the device. Static filled the air, the antiquated technology searching for a frequency that had been silent for decades. Reeves keyed the microphone. "This is Fox Squad on Ghost Channel. We are compromised and require assistance." Only static answered. Reeves tried again, providing their approximate coordinates and situation status. Still nothing. "It was worth a try," he conceded, returning the radio to his pack. They continued their grueling journey as the day progressed, the weather deteriorating with each passing hour. By mid-afternoon, storm clouds gathered over the peaks, bringing with them a heavy snowfall that reduced visibility to less than 50 meters. The storm was both blessing and curse. It covered their tracks, but made navigation exponentially more difficult and increased the risk of exposure for Harrington, whose condition was steadily worsening. "We need to find shelter," Reynolds advised as the wind intensified. "Storm's getting worse. Another hour and we'll be in whiteout conditions." Reeves consulted Hargrove's map, identifying a possible shelter, a shepherd's hut marked on the eastern slope of a nearby ridge. They altered course, fighting through increasingly harsh conditions. The hut, when they reached it, was little more than a stone shell with a partially collapsed roof, but it offered protection from the worst of the elements. They established a defensive position, using their limited supplies to stabilize Harrington and warm the interior enough to prevent hypothermia. "How long will the storm last?" Torres asked, peering through a gap in the stone wall at the swirling white beyond. "These mountain systems can produce storms lasting days," Donovan replied. "But based on barometric pressure, I'd estimate this one will pass by morning." Reeves organized a watch rotation, allowing team members to rest in shifts. When his turn came, he found sleep elusive, his mind replaying the mission's failures and calculating their increasingly slim odds of survival. He was roused from his troubled thoughts by Reynolds, who had been monitoring their backtrail. "Movement," she reported tersely. "Multiple heat signatures approaching from the south." Reeves moved to her position, using his own thermal optics to confirm. Through the swirling snow, the signatures were faint but unmistakable, at least a dozen figures moving in tactical formation. "They're tracking us through the storm," he realized. "The device in Harrington must have more sophisticated capabilities than we assumed," Donovan concluded. "Possibly satellite-linked." "How soon?" Reeves asked. "At their current pace, 20 minutes. Maybe less. 20 minutes to prepare a defense against superior numbers in deteriorating weather with limited ammunition and an injured civilian." The tactical mathematics were brutally simple. "We move. Now, northeastern ridgeline. We use the storm for concealment, try to break the pursuit." They roused Harrington, who had fallen into a fevered sleep, and gathered their essential equipment. The storm had intensified, the wind howling between the mountain peaks like a living thing. Visibility had dropped to less than 10 meters, forcing them to navigate by compass and memory. The pursuers drew closer as they struggled through the deepening snow, the distance between predator and prey shrinking with each passing minute. The sound of voices carried on the wind, orders being shouted in multiple languages, Pashto Dari and the distinctive cadence of Russian. Reynolds, bringing up the rear, fired twice. 2 pursuing figures fell. The others immediately took cover, returning fire with a discipline that confirmed these were no ordinary Taliban fighters. "Professional military," Reynolds confirmed, rejoining the team. "Former Spetsnaz, if I had to guess." The way they moved, the fire discipline. "Volkov's personal operators," Reeves concluded. They pushed forward the terrain, becoming increasingly treacherous. The northeastern ridge rose before them, a wall of rock and ice disappearing into the storm clouds above. Harrington stumbled, nearly falling over a hidden drop. "I can't," he gasped, his strength finally failing. "Leave me. Complete your mission." "You are the mission," Reeves reminded him, supporting the physicist as they continued their ascent. The ridge offered minimal cover, scattered boulders and stunted pines bent permanently by the mountain winds. They established a hasty defensive position using natural features to their advantage. The pursuing force emerged from the swirling snow, moving with the confidence of hunters who know their prey is cornered. Gunfire erupted, bullets ricocheting off rock and ice around them. Fox Squad returned fire, their superior marksmanship temporarily offsetting their numerical disadvantage. Reynolds established an overwatch position, her rifle systematically eliminating the most immediate threats. But tactical reality remained unavoidable. They were outnumbered, low on ammunition, and in an exposed position. The pursuing force was deploying to flank them, using the terrain to establish firing positions with interlocking fields of fire. Sir Donovan reported during a momentary lull. "Based on their movement patterns, they're setting up for a final push. I estimate 5 minutes before they have us completely surrounded." Reeves made the hardest decision of his career. "We make for Widow's Peak." He pointed to the forbidding mountain that loomed through breaks in the storm clouds. Hargrove's last resort. The team understood the implication. Widow's Peak represented their final defensive position, a place to make their stand when all other options were exhausted. They fought a tactical withdrawal, each team member covering the others as they moved toward the mountain. Harrington, finding reserves of strength born from desperation, kept pace without assistance. The storm intensified once more, reducing visibility to near zero. For precious minutes, it concealed their movement, allowing them to break contact with their pursuers. Then disaster struck. As they traversed a narrow ledge along the mountainside, the ground beneath Torres gave way, a cornice of snow, weakened by their passage. He disappeared with a shout, tumbling down the steep slope. "Torres!" Reeves called out, dropping to his stomach to peer over the edge. 20 meters below, Torres lay sprawled on a rock outcrop, his leg bent at an unnatural angle. Alive but injured and in a position impossible to reach quickly. "Go!" Torres shouted up, already dragging himself into a defensive position. "I'll hold them here." "Negative," Reeves responded. "We don't leave our people behind." "There's no time," Torres argued, checking his weapon. "Get Harrington to the peak. I'll buy you the time you need." The tactical logic was irrefutable, but it violated everything Reeves believed about leadership. Torres must have seen the conflict in his expression. "It's my call, sir," the younger man said firmly. "Let me do this." Reynolds placed a hand on Reeves' shoulder. "He's right, we have minutes at most." With the heaviest of hearts, Reeves made the decision. "Covering fire in 3 minutes. Make them count, Torres." "Always do, sir." They continued toward Widow's Peak, the sounds of pursuit growing louder once more. 3 minutes later, the crack of Torres's M4 echoed across the mountainside, followed by the distinctive thunder of returned AK fire. "He's giving us a chance," Donovan said quietly. "We need to make it count." Widow's Peak rose before them, a natural fortress of stone and ice. They ascended the treacherous slope, Harrington stumbling with exhaustion, but refusing assistance. The physicist had found something within himself, a determination that transcended physical limitations. The flat plateau at the summit offered what Hargrove had promised, a defensible position with clear lines of sight in all directions. Ancient stone walls suggested it had served a similar purpose in centuries past, perhaps for tribal lookouts or mountain shepherds seeking protection from predators. "Set up a perimeter," Reeves ordered. "Reynolds establish overwatch on the southern approach. Donovan, get Harrington behind cover and see what you can do for his injuries." The gunfire from Torres's position had fallen silent. Whether he had been overrun or had fallen back to a new position was impossible to know. The storm began to clear the swirling snow, giving way to patches of clear sky. The visibility improved, revealing the vast panorama of the Hindu Kush, stretching in all directions. Beautiful in the way that only places of great danger can be. Reeves removed the PRC-90 radio from his pack, studying it for a long moment. Their situation had reached the exact parameters Hargrove had described, dire, desperate, with no conventional options remaining. He activated the device, turning the frequency dial to the setting Hargrove had marked with red tape. "Fox Squad on Ghost Channel. We are at Widow's Peak, surrounded and in need of immediate assistance." Static answered the empty hiss of a frequency long abandoned. Then impossibly the static cleared. A woman's voice, cool and precise, filled the silence. Fox Squad, this is Ghost Spotter. I have your position. Enemy force approaching from multiple vectors. Approximately 30 combatants, well-armed and tactical. Reeves exchanged stunned glances with Donovan. Reynolds, from her overwatch position, turned in disbelief. Who is this? Reeves demanded. How did you access this channel? Questions later, Lieutenant. You have incoming West Ridge. 2 snipers setting up range 800 meters. Reynolds swung her rifle toward the indicated position, acquiring the targets through her scope. Confirmed, she reported the professional in her overriding the shock. 2 hostiles with SVD Dragunovs. Hold position, the voice instructed. On my mark. A moment of silence stretched across the mountainside. Then a single rifle shot echoed from somewhere to their north, a distinctive crack unlike the weapons they had encountered thus far. Through his binoculars, Reeves watched one of the enemy snipers crumple, the precision of the shot evident even at this distance. The second sniper, realizing the threat, attempted to relocate. A second shot, and he too fell. West Ridge clear, the voice reported calmly. Redirect your attention south. Their main force is assembling for a frontal assault. You have approximately 12 minutes before they reach your position. Who are you? Reeves asked again, unable to reconcile what he was witnessing. The reply was simple, impossible, and exactly what Hargrove had prepared them for. The ghost you were told about, Lieutenant. Now prepare your defenses. It's going to be a very long night. The last golden rays of sunset disappeared behind the Hindu Kush Mountains, plunging Widow's Peak into the cold blue of mountain twilight. Lieutenant Jack Reeves positioned his remaining team members with the precision of a chess master making his final moves. Sarah Reynolds maintained overwatch from behind a natural parapet of weathered stone, her rifle barrel tracking invisible targets through her thermal scope. Mike Donovan had transformed a shallow depression into a makeshift communications center, the ancient PRC-90 radio now their only lifeline to the outside world. Dr. Harrington huddled against the stone wall, his physicist's hands shaking with cold and exhaustion. The man's eyes darted constantly toward the southern slope where distant figures moved like shadows against the snow. They're coming, Harrington whispered, his voice brittle with fear. Reeves checked his weapon for the 4th time, a ritual born from 2 decades of combat. Let them come. This position has held for centuries. The voice from the radio, the woman calling herself Ghost Spotter, had fallen silent after her initial contact, leaving them wondering if they had imagined the entire exchange. Only the reality of the 2 enemy snipers, eliminated with impossible precision, confirmed they hadn't hallucinated. Movement southeast ridge, Reynolds reported, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Standard infantry assault pattern. I count 16 No 18 combatants advancing in staggered formation. Donovan glanced up from his equipment. Sir, still no contact on conventional frequencies. Whatever jamming technology they're using is military grade. Reeves nodded, unsurprised. Volkov's resources were clearly substantial, his technological capabilities beyond what they had anticipated. Reynolds conserve ammunition, engage only confirmed threats that breach the 300-meter mark. Copy that, she acknowledged, making minute adjustments to her scope. The radio crackled to life, the woman's voice returning with the same eerie calm. Fox Squad, enemy forces deploying mortars at your southwest range, 700 meters. Adjust position immediately. Reeves reacted without hesitation. Everyone move northern face now. They scrambled across the plateau just as the first mortar round impacted their previous position, showering rock and ice in a deadly spray. 3 more rounds followed in quick succession, walking across the southern edge of their defensive position. How did she know? Donovan asked, his voice tinged with both gratitude and suspicion. The radio answered before Reeves could formulate a response. Thermal signature of the mortar team visible from my position. They're recalibrating for a second barrage. You have approximately 40 seconds. Who are you? Reeves demanded, keying the radio. How are you seeing this? Former Marine Scout Sniper Lieutenant. Currently operating at my own discretion. Elizabeth Carter, Reeves said, testing the name Colonel Hargrove had mentioned. A pause longer than any previous delay. That name belonged to someone who died a long time ago, according to official records. But you're very much alive, Reeves pressed. Focus on a survival now, Lieutenant. Questions later. Enemy QRF approaching from Eastern Valley. Additional 30 fighters heavily armed. ETA 12 minutes. The tactical implications were stark. They faced nearly 50 combatants supported by mortar teams and likely more snipers. 4 operators, now 3 with Torres missing against overwhelming force. "We can't hold against those numbers," Reynolds said, voicing what they all knew. "We're not meant to," Reeves replied. "We just need to hold long enough for extraction." Donovan looked up sharply. "Sir, we have no confirmed extraction. Base doesn't even know our position." "They will," Reeves said, a plan forming in his mind. He keyed the radio again. "Ghost Spotter, we need to transmit our coordinates to Bagram. Can you relay per—" "Negative. My communications are limited to this channel only. By design." Another mortar barrage interrupted their conversation, this one falling short of their position, but indicating the enemy was zeroing in. "I can, however, provide an alternative," Ghost Spotter continued after the explosion subsided. "There's a cavern system beneath your position. Cold War-era CIA cache point. Entry concealed on the northwest face behind a rock formation resembling a wolf's head." Reeves exchanged glances with Donovan, the implications clear. Their mysterious guardian knew not just the terrain, but classified intelligence about covert infrastructure. "Sir," Reynolds called out, her voice tight with urgency. "First wave approaching final defensive line. 300 meters in closing." "Engage at will, see," Reeves ordered, moving to a firing position along the northern parapet. Reynolds' rifle cracked 3 times in rapid succession. Through his scope, Reeves watched 3 attackers fall, the precision of her marksmanship giving the others pause. The assault momentarily stalled as the enemy sought cover. "Ghost Spotter, we could use some assistance," Reeves requested, watching more fighters moving into position. "Already providing it, Lieutenant. Check your north-northeast ridgeline in 3 seconds." As if choreographed, a series of shots rang out from somewhere in the distance, each followed by the collapse of an enemy fighter. 5 precision shots, 5 targets eliminated. The remaining attackers broke formation, scrambling for better cover and firing wildly toward the unseen threat. "Lieutenant, proceed to the cavern system," Ghost Spotter instructed. "I'll cover your movement." "Negative," Reeves responded firmly. "Not without my missing operator. Specialist Torres went down on the south slope. Status unknown." A pause then. "Torres is alive, wounded but mobile. I have visual on his position, approximately 600 meters southeast of your location. He's evading a 4-man search party." Relief flooded through Reeves. "Can you guide him to us?" "Working on it. For now, focus on your immediate survival. Enemy forces are regrouping for a coordinated assault from multiple angles." Reeves made a rapid tactical assessment. "Donovan, locate this cavern entrance. Reynolds, maintain overwatch and prepare to fall back on my command." Donovan moved quickly along the northwest face of the peak, searching for the Wolf's Head rock formation. Reynolds adjusted her position, establishing interlocking fields of fire with Reeves to cover the most likely assault vectors. The next wave came with greater coordination, fighters moving in bounds while others provided covering fire. The discipline confirmed Reynolds' earlier assessment. These were professional military operators, not typical insurgents. Fox Squad responded with measured fire, making each shot count against their dwindling ammunition supply. Reynolds alternated between targets, her rifle speaking with cold authority as she eliminated the most immediate threats. Reeves focused on suppression, forcing the enemy to keep their heads down while seeking the tactical commanders among them. Despite their skill, the mathematics of combat remained unforgiving. Each magazine emptied brought them closer to the inevitable. Each enemy fighter eliminated was replaced by 2 more emerging from the gathering darkness. "Donovan's status on that cavern," Reeves called out, slamming a fresh magazine into his rifle. "Found it," came the response. "Entrance partially concealed by ice but passable. Interior confirms prior usage abandoned equipment, cold weather supplies." Reynolds fall back to Donovan's position. "I'll cover," she acknowledged with a curt nod, gathering her equipment with practiced efficiency before moving to the northwestern face. Reeves provided covering fire, his M4 on semi-automatic to conserve ammunition, each shot carefully placed. As Reynolds reached Donovan's position, Reeves prepared to follow when the radio crackled again. "Lieutenant, be advised. High-value target observed approaching your position. Dmitry Volkov confirmed on site, directing operations from a command vehicle 1 kilometer east." Reeves paused, the tactical implications of this information cascading through his mind. Volkov's personal presence changed the equation significantly. Can you engage, he asked. Negative, outside effective range, and protected by multiple security layers. But his presence confirms the significance of your package. Reeves glanced at Harrington, who had remained silent throughout the firefight, his civilian sensibilities overwhelmed by the violence surrounding him. He's after more than just Harrington, Reeves realized. He wants confirmation. Sir, Reynolds questioned. Harrington said Volkov knew details about the miniaturized nuclear initiative that weren't in any file. He's not just after the information, he's seeking verification of something he already knows. The physicist looked up, comprehension dawning on his exhausted face. The Siberian facility, he whispered. He's trying to confirm the Siberian facility is real. Before Reeves could question him further, Host Spotter's voice returned with new urgency. Multiple thermal signatures approaching from all vectors. They're committing their full force. You have approximately 2 minutes before your position is overrun. Fall back to the cavern, Reeves ordered. Now, they retreated to the Wolf's Head formation, where Donovan had cleared enough ice to reveal a narrow opening in the mountainside. Reeves provided covering fire as Reynolds and Harrington entered, then followed them into the darkness. The interior opened into a space larger than expected, a natural cavern expanded by human tools. The air was stale but noticeably warmer than the biting cold outside. Donovan's tactical light revealed the remnants of Cold War espionage rusted equipment, crates stenciled with Cyrillic characters, collapsed cots, and communications gear from another era. CIA listening post, Donovan observed, examining the abandoned equipment, probably monitoring Soviet activity in the region during the Afghan-Soviet War. Reeves secured the entrance, positioning himself where he could observe any approach while remaining protected. How deep does it go? Unknown. There appears to be a tunnel system extending further into the mountain. Some sections have collapsed, but there's a main passage that remains clear. The radio hissed with static before Ghost Spotter's voice returned. You found the entrance. Good. The system connects to an exit point 2 kilometers north. Remains viable despite decades of neglect. What about Torres? Reeves demanded, unwilling to abandon his operator. I'm guiding him to an alternative entry point. Southern approach too heavily monitored now. Reeves made a decision. Donovan, get Harrington deeper into the system. Locate the northern exit and assess viability. Reynolds, maintain position here with me until Torres arrives. As Donovan led the physicist deeper into the cavern, Reynolds took up a defensive position beside Reeves. In the dim light, her face revealed nothing of her thoughts, but her posture betrayed the tension running through her. You believe her? She asked quietly. This ghost from Hargrove's stories. I believe the evidence. Those shots weren't imaginary. And Torres, you really think she can guide him to us? Reeves had no answer that wouldn't sound like blind faith. Instead, he focused on the tactical reality before them. We hold for 30 minutes. If Torres doesn't appear by then, we follow Donovan and find another way to extract him. Reynolds nodded, accepting the parameters of their impossible situation. Outside, the sounds of their pursuers grew louder, voices calling in multiple languages, the crunch of boots on snow, the metallic clicks of weapons being readied. Minutes stretched into an eternity as they waited in tense silence. Each sound from outside caused them to tighten their grips on their weapons muscles, coiled for the inevitable confrontation. When it came, it wasn't the expected assault, but a desperate scramble at the cavern entrance. A figure appeared silhouetted against the night sky, moving with the awkward gait of the injured. Torres, Reynolds whispered, recognizing him despite the darkness. The heavy weapons specialist half fell through the entrance, blood darkening the left side of his uniform. His face was pale beneath the tactical light, but his eyes remained alert. Thought you'd leave without me, he managed, grimacing, as Reeves helped him to a seated position against the cavern wall. How bad? Reeves asked, examining the wound. Through and through, lower left abdomen, missed the important stuff. Reynolds produced a medical kit from her pack, working with swift efficiency to stabilize the injury. How did you find us? She asked, applying pressure bandages. Torres's eyes held a mixture of pain and wonder. Woman's voice, on my comm, guided me here, said she was watching over us. Reeves felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. Did you see her any visual? Negative, just the voice and the shots. Torres winced as Reynolds tightened the bandage. She dropped two tangos that had me cornered. Shots came from nowhere. Perfect placement. The radio crackled again, as if summoned by their conversation. Lieutenant, enemy forces converging on your position. They've identified the cavern entrance. You need to move deeper immediately. Torres is wounded but mobile, Reeves reported. We're falling back to rendezvous with Donovan. Understood. I'll delay their pursuit as long as possible, but my effectiveness is limited once you're inside the mountain. Who are you? Reeves asked again, unable to leave the question unanswered any longer. The pause that followed seemed to contain decades of silence. Someone who remembers their duty, came the eventual reply. Now move, Lieutenant, while you still can. They helped Torres to his feet, supporting him as they navigated deeper into the cavern system. The main passage sloped downward, carved by ancient water flows and expanded by human hands. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like frozen daggers, glistening in the beam of their tactical lights. The sound of gunfire erupted behind them, distant but unmistakable. Ghost Spotter engaging their pursuers, buying them precious time. After several hundred meters, the passage opened into a larger chamber where Donovan had established a temporary base. The communications specialist had located emergency supplies cached decades earlier, chemical heat sources, preserved rations, and even some medical supplies, outdated but still functional. Torres, Donovan acknowledged, relief evident in his voice. Good to have you back. Wouldn't miss the party? Torres replied weakly as they helped him to a makeshift cot. Harrington sat nearby, warming his hands over a chemical heater. The physicist looked marginally better after rest and hydration, though deep fatigue still lined his face. Status, Reeves asked Donovan. I've scouted about half a kilometer north. The passage remains viable, though there are sections requiring careful navigation. Evidence of Soviet-era booty traps, most likely degraded, but still worth avoiding. And the northern exit. Not yet located, but the airflow suggests multiple openings to the surface. If Ghost Spotter's information is accurate, we should reach it within 2 hours of travel. Reynolds finished tending to Torres's wound, her expression troubled. Sir, with Torres's condition, that timeline may be optimistic. I can move, Torres insisted, though his complexion suggested otherwise. We rest for 30 minutes, Reeves decided. Recover strength, distribute supplies, then proceed north. He turned to Harrington. Doctor, you mentioned a Siberian facility. What were you referring to? The physicist glanced nervously toward the cavern entrance, as if expecting pursuers to materialize from the darkness. It's classified beyond top secret. I shouldn't even know about it. We're beyond classification concerns now, Reeves said flatly. Volkov is willing to commit significant resources to capture you. We need to understand why. Harrington sighed, the weight of secrets visibly heavy on his shoulders. The miniaturized nuclear initiative wasn't just about creating smaller nuclear devices. It was about creating undetectable ones. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. During the Cold War, both sides developed detection technologies for nuclear materials, Harrington continued, but theoretical work suggested certain isotope combinations could evade standard detection methods. A stealth nuke, Torres muttered from his cot. Essentially, yes. The Americans pursued it under the M&I program. The Soviets had their own version based partly on stolen intelligence. Neither side fully succeeded before research was officially terminated in 1908. Officially, Reeves noted the qualification. Harrington nodded, his academic demeanor returning as he lectured on the topic of his expertise. Both sides claimed to have abandoned the research, but in the chaos following the Soviet collapse, rumors emerged about a facility in Siberia where work continued under a rogue element of the former KGB. Volkov, Donovan concluded. Likely, though, I never knew the names involved. Just that certain theoretical breakthroughs had occurred at this facility before it was allegedly destroyed in 1992. And now Volkov wants confirmation that the facility existed, Reeves said, piecing it together, which suggests he's trying to recreate the research. Or recover it, Harrington added. The latest intelligence suggested that critical research data might have survived the facility's destruction. The sound of distant gunfire had ceased, replaced by an ominous silence. Whether Ghost Spotter had withdrawn or been neutralized was impossible to know. Time to move, Reeves decided, checking his watch. Donovan, take point. Reynolds, assist Torres. I'll bring up the rear with Harrington. They proceeded deeper into the mountain, following the main passage as it twisted through the ancient rock. The air grew colder as they descended their breath-forming clouds in the beam of their tactical lights. The walls bore evidence of human modification: support beams, electrical conduit, mounting points, and occasionally Cyrillic graffiti from Soviet-era occupants. After nearly an hour of careful progress, they reached a junction where the passage split into three branches. Donovan examined each option, checking airflow and structural integrity. The rightmost passage shows signs of recent collapse, he reported. Left and center appear stable, but I'm detecting a slight air current from the center path, suggesting it may lead to the surface. Before Reeves could decide, their radios crackled to life, not the antiquated PRC-90, but their standard tactical comms that had been jammed for days. Fox Squad, this is Ghost Spotter. Enemy jamming systems temporarily neutralized. You have approximately 3 minutes of clear communications before they adapt. Reeves immediately switched to their primary frequency. Razor Actual, this is Fox Leader. Emergency transmission. Do you copy? After an agonizing moment, the response came through. Fox Leader, this is Razor Actual. We read you. Status report. Well, in precise military shorthand, Reeves conveyed their situation: the crashed helicopter, the successful extraction of Harrington, their current position, and the pursuing force. Confirm your coordinates, Razor Actual requested. Reeves provided their last known surface position at Widow's Peak, adding, currently in cavern system, beneath that position, proceeding north. Require immediate extraction once we reach the surface. Understood, Fox Leader. Assets being diverted to your location. Nearest QRF is 30 minutes out once you provide surface coordinates. Can you hold that long? Affirmative, but be advised we are facing former Spetsnaz operators led by HVT Dmitry Volkov. They are well-equipped and determined. There was a pause before Razor Actual responded, the implications of Volkov's presence clearly registering at command level. Copy that, Fox Leader. Extraction priority upgraded to Alpha. Gunship support authorized. Transmit coordinates when you reach the surface. Understood. Fox Leader out. Reeves switched back to the Ghost channel. Ghost Spotter, did you copy that exchange? Affirmative. Extraction assets inbound. You need to reach the northern exit within the next 40 minutes to make the rendezvous viable. Can you guide us through this system? Negative. My knowledge is limited to entry and exit points, not the interior passages. But I can tell you the center path is your best option based on the original CIA schematics. And the pursuit, I've delayed them significantly. Multiple casualties inflicted. They're regrouping, bringing in specialized equipment for cavern operations. Estimate you have a 20-minute lead, maybe less if they have the tunnel schematics. Reeves made his decision. We're taking the center passage. We'll contact when we reach the exit. Understood. I'm repositioning to provide cover at the northern exit. Be advised, Volkov has withdrawn from the immediate area, likely establishing a wider perimeter to intercept extraction assets. The implications were clear. Volkov was thinking strategically, anticipating their next move rather than pursuing blindly. They proceeded down the center passage, moving as quickly as Torres's condition allowed. The tunnel began to ascend gradually, a promising sign that it might lead to the surface. The air grew fresher, carrying the faint scent of pine and snow. After 20 minutes of steady progress, they reached a section where the passage narrowed significantly, requiring them to proceed single file through a twisting corridor barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. I don't like this, Reynolds murmured, as she helped Torres navigate the tight space. Perfect ambush point. No choice, Reeves replied from behind them. Keep moving. They had nearly cleared the narrow section when Donovan, still on point, suddenly raised his closed fist, the universal signal for an immediate halt. Contact front, he whispered, dropping to a crouch. Movement ahead. Reeves eased forward, joining Donovan at the head of their formation. In the dim light of their tactical lamps, the passage ahead appeared to open into another chamber. Shadows moved across the far wall, human figures, at least 3 of them, moving with tactical precision. They beat us here, Reynolds whispered, her voice barely audible. Must be another entrance we didn't know about. Reeves assessed their options, none of them good. The narrow passage left them no room to maneuver, no alternative route visible. We go through them, he decided. Reynolds, take Torres and Harrington back 20 meters. Donovan and I will clear the chamber. Sir, with respect, 2 operators against unknown numbers in an open space is suicide, Reynolds objected. We have no choice. Extraction window is closing, and Torres needs medical attention beyond what we can provide. Reeves checked his weapon, ensuring a round was chambered. On my signal, hit them with everything we've got. Create chaos, push through to the far side. Before Reynolds could protest further, the PRC-90 radio crackled to life. Fox Squad, hold position, Ghost Spotter's voice commanded. Hostiles in the chamber ahead, 4 operators with night vision capabilities. They've established a blocking position at the chamber's northern exit. We see them, Reeves confirmed. No alternative route available. There's always an alternative, Lieutenant. Stand by. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The shadows continued to move in the chamber ahead, the enemy operators unaware of their presence just 30 meters away. Then a new sound reached them, faint at first, then growing in intensity. A rumbling from somewhere deep within the mountain, like distant thunder trapped beneath the earth. What is that? Torres whispered, pain momentarily forgotten. The enemy operators heard it too. Their shadows moved with sudden urgency, weapons raising as they sought the source of the disturbance. Brace yourselves, Ghost Spotter advised calmly, and cover your ears. A heartbeat later, a deafening explosion shook the cavern system. Rock dust filled the air as the ceiling of the chamber ahead partially collapsed, massive stone slabs crashing down onto the blocking force. The tactical lights of the enemy operators danced wildly, then vanished beneath the falling debris. When the dust began to settle, Reeves switched his light to maximum intensity, illuminating the devastation ahead. The chamber was now half filled with rubble, the blocking force either buried or forced to retreat through the northern exit. Proceed quickly, Ghost Spotter instructed. That was the last of the Cold War demolition charges. The structural integrity of the entire system may be compromised. How did you trigger those charges? Donovan asked, professional curiosity overwhelming his normal reserve. Old CIA fail-safe system, designed to deny the facility to Soviet forces if discovered. The detonators were tied to a unique radio frequency, separate from conventional communications. The Ghost Channel, Reeves realized. One of its original purposes, she confirmed. Now move. The northern exit is approximately 400 meters beyond the chamber. The collapse has temporarily cleared your path, but secondary cave-ins are likely. They navigated through the partially collapsed chamber, climbing over rubble and avoiding unstable sections of ceiling. The air was thick with dust, reducing visibility to mere meters, despite their tactical lights. The mountain itself seemed to groan around them, centuries-old stone adjusting to new structural realities. Beyond the chamber, they found the passage continuing northward, now sloping distinctly upward. The air grew noticeably fresher, carrying the unmistakable chill of the outside world. We're close, Donovan reported from the lead position. I can feel the airflow increasing. After another 100 meters, they reached what appeared to be a dead end, a solid rock face blocking further progress. Donovan examined it closely, his fingers tracing the edges of the stone. It's not natural, he concluded. Manufactured barrier disguised as natural rock. Likely a concealed exit point. Can we breach it? Reeves asked. Donovan located a recessed panel hidden among the natural contours of the rock. It's its Soviet-era construction, nearly invisible to the casual observer. Old-school mechanical lock. I can work with this. While Donovan focused on the lock mechanism, Reeves contacted Ghost Spotter. We've reached what appears to be the exit point. Working on access now. Confirmed. I have visual on your exit location from my position. Area appears clear of immediate threats, but be advised that Phantom Cell has established a perimeter approximately 1 kilometer out in all directions. They're anticipating your emergence. Extraction assets. No visual confirmation yet, but satellite imagery shows multiple aircraft moving in your direction. Estimated arrival in 10 minutes. The timing would be tight. Even if they reached the surface immediately, they would face a desperate holding action against superior forces until extraction arrived. Donovan worked methodically on the lock mechanism, his expression showing growing frustration. Soviet engineering, he muttered, designed to last through nuclear winter. Time estimate, Reeves pressed. 5 minutes, maybe less if... A metallic click interrupted him, followed by the grind of hidden gears engaging. Never mind, we're good to go. The rock face swung inward like an enormous door, revealing a narrow tunnel leading to what appeared to be a cave mouth. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine trees and freedom. Reynolds, take point, Reeves ordered. Establish a defensive position at the exit. Torres and Harrington next, then Donovan. I'll bring up the rear. They moved toward the surface in their assigned order, emerging onto a small plateau halfway up the northern face of the mountain. The night sky spread above them, a canvas of brilliant stars undimmed by artificial light. Below the forested valley stretched northward, its contours softened by moonlight reflecting off snow. Reynolds immediately secured the perimeter, identifying defensible positions and potential threat vectors. Torres collapsed against a boulder, his strength finally giving out after the long journey through the mountain. Harrington remained close to him, the physicist and the warrior united by their shared ordeal. Reeves contacted Bagram, transmitting their exact coordinates and situation status. The response was immediate and reassuring. Fox leader extraction assets 10 minutes out. Gunship support leading. Hold your position. Acknowledged, Reeves replied, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders for the first time in days. He switched to the ghost channel. Ghost spotter, we've reached the surface. Extraction inbound. What's your status? Maintaining overwatch from ridge position 600 meters east of your location. I have clear lines of sight on likely enemy approach vectors. We owe you our lives, Reeves said simply. Join us for extraction. Whatever your status, whatever your history, we can sort it out back at base. The silence that followed spoke volumes. That's not possible, Lieutenant, she finally responded. My war ended officially decades ago. My existence now is complicated. Colonel Hargrove sent us with those radios for a reason. He knew you were out here. He wanted us to find you. Richard always was sentimental that way, she replied, a hint of warmth entering her voice for the first time. Tell him I'm still watching the old boundaries. Before Reeves could respond, Reynolds called out from her overwatch position. Movement, multiple vectors. They're coming. The night erupted in gunfire as Phantom Cell forces launched their assault from the tree line below. Reynolds and Donovan returned fire, establishing interlocking fields of defense, while Reeves moved Harrington to the most protected position available. Fox Squad, be advised. Ghost Spotter's voice came through with clinical detachment. Hostiles approaching from 3 vectors. Southeast Ridge primary concentration. Northwest Valley secondary force. Northern tree line flanking element. Even as she spoke, precision shots rang out from her position, targeting the southeast ridge, where the enemy commander would logically be positioned. The distinctive crack of her rifle was unlike anything in their arsenal, a sound from another era. Extraction 5 minutes out, Reeves announced, joining Reynolds at the defensive line. We just need to hold. The battle intensified as Phantom Cell fighters pushed forward using the terrain for cover as they advanced methodically. Fox Squad responded with disciplined fire, making each shot count against their dwindling ammunition supply. Then a new sound cut through the night, the distinctive thump of mortar fire from somewhere in the valley below. Reeves recognized the threat instantly. Incoming, take cover. The first rounds impacted 20 meters below their position, sending fragments of rock and ice skyward. The second barrage landed closer, the enemy gunners walking their fire toward the plateau. They'll have us bracketed in 2 more adjustments, Reynolds calculated grimly. As if in response, Ghost Spotter's rifle spoke again, this time directing fire at targets they couldn't see from their position. The mortar fire suddenly ceased the accuracy of her shooting, neutralizing the immediate threat. Mortar team suppressed, she reported. Be advised, enemy QRF approaching from Eastern Valley. Heavily armed, vehicle mounted. ETA 3 minutes. The timing would be brutally close. Their ammunition was critically low. Torres was fading fast and reinforcements were rushing toward their position. The extraction birds might arrive only to find a defensive position overrun. Then Reeves spotted something that changed the equation, a familiar figure observing the battle from a rocky outcrop across the valley. Even at this distance, the white beard and military bearing were unmistakable. I have visual on Volkov, he reported. East Ridge, approximately 800 meters. Confirmed, Ghost Spotter replied, her voice suddenly tight with an emotion Reeves couldn't identify. I've had him in my scope for the past 10 minutes. Can you take the shot? The pause that followed contained decades of history Reeves could only imagine. That would be inadvisable, Lieutenant. He's outside effective range for guaranteed elimination, and a missed shot would only accelerate their assault. But something in her voice suggested another reason, a personal calculation beyond tactical considerations. The firefight intensified as enemy forces pushed closer now, within 100 meters of their position. Fox Squad's defensive fire grew increasingly desperate, operators counting rounds and conserving ammunition for only the most threatening targets. 2 minutes to extraction. Donovan reported checking his watch between bursts of fire. Reynolds' rifle clicked empty. She smoothly transitioned to her sidearm, the reduction in effective range a tactical problem she accepted without comment. Just when it seemed their position would be overrun, salvation arrived from above. The distinctive sound of helicopter rotors cut through the night, followed by the deeper roar of mounted miniguns spinning up. Two Apache gunships crested the ridge to their north weapon systems already engaging enemy positions. The night transformed into chaos as 30mm cannon fire rained down on phantom cell positions, forcing even the most determined fighters to seek cover. Behind the Apaches came their extraction, a Black Hawk helicopter descending toward the small plateau, its crew chief already providing covering fire from the open door. "Move now," Reeves ordered, helping Torres to his feet. "Reynolds, Donovan, get Harrington aboard." They rushed toward the hovering helicopter hunched against the rotor wash that sent snow and debris swirling around them. Reynolds and Donovan boarded first, then helped pull Torres and Harrington into the relative safety of the cabin. Reeves paused at the door, scanning the battlefield one final time. The Apaches continued their devastating work, hunting down remaining enemy fighters with thermal imaging and overwhelming firepower. Across the valley, the rocky outcrop where Volkov had stood was now empty, the Russian commander having withdrawn from the losing battle. "Lieutenant, we need to go," the crew chief shouted over the roar of the engines. Reeves keyed the ghost channel one last time. "Ghost spotter extraction complete. I repeat, extraction complete. Final call for you to join us." For several seconds, only static answered. Then her voice returned as calm and measured as when they'd first heard it on Widow's Peak. "Not my war anymore, Lieutenant. Not officially, at least." A pause, then. "Watch the southern ridgeline as you depart. Consider it a farewell gesture." Reeves climbed aboard the helicopter, signaling the pilot to take off. As the Black Hawk gained altitude, banking northward toward the safety of Bagram, he looked toward the southern ridge where Volkov's command vehicle would be staging. A series of explosions blossomed along the ridgeline, perfectly placed to destroy vehicles without causing casualties. A precision statement rather than indiscriminate destruction. A professional signature. Reynolds, Reeves called over the helicopter's intercom. "Your assessment of those explosions." The sniper studied the pattern through her scope, professional admiration evident in her voice. "Pre-positioned charges. Perfectly placed for maximum effect with minimum collateral damage. Whoever she is, she thinks like a Marine." The Black Hawk continued its flight northward, leaving behind the mountainside battlefield. In the distance, the Apache gunships completed their final attack runs before peeling away to escort the extraction helicopter. As they flew beyond the range of their tactical radios, the Ghost Channel emitted one final transmission, faint but clear beneath the static. "Fox Squad mission complete. Your duty is done. Mine continues." Then silence, as the mysterious guardian of Widow's Peak vanished once more into the shadows of the Hindu Kush, leaving behind only questions and the certainty that they had encountered something beyond official explanation. In the relative safety of the helicopter cabin, Reeves checked on his team. Torres was receiving emergency medical care from the crew medic, his condition stable but serious. Donovan was already debriefing with headquarters via secure communications. Reynolds sat silently, her sniper's eyes still scanning the terrain below, professional habits unchanged despite their rescue. And Harrington, the physicist, whose knowledge had nearly triggered an international crisis, stared out the helicopter window at the mountains falling away beneath them. His expression suggested a man contemplating secrets that would remain buried in those peaks alongside the ghosts of a war most believed long finished. The Black Hawk banked westward, following the valley toward Bagram Air Base. Behind them, the first light of dawn touched the highest peaks of the Hindu Kush, illuminating the ancient mountains that had witnessed yet another chapter in humanity's endless conflicts. The weapons may change, Reeves reflected. The ideologies may evolve. But the shadows of the past never truly fade. They simply wait patient as the mountains themselves for the moment when old wars become new again. The Black Hawk helicopter descended through the pre-dawn darkness toward Bagram Air Base, its running lights cutting small tunnels through the lingering night. Inside the cabin, Lieutenant Jack Reeves watched the medical team work on Torres, their movements precise and urgent in the confined space. The heavy weapons specialist's face was pale beneath the cabin's red lighting, but his eyes remained open, focused, alive. "Don't die on me now, Torres," Reeves said, his voice pitched just above the rotor noise. "That's an order." A weak smile crossed Torres's face. "Never disobeyed an order yet, sir." The helicopter touched down on the medical pad where a trauma team waited with a gurney. Reeves watched as Torres was efficiently transferred and rushed toward the field hospital, the young operator giving a thumbs up as they wheeled him away. Colonel Richard Hargrove stood at the edge of the landing zone, his tall frame unmistakable despite the swirling dust and pre-dawn shadows. His silver hair caught the landing lights as he approached, expression unreadable beneath decades of military discipline. "Lieutenant," he acknowledged, eyes sweeping over the remaining team members. "You look like hell. Well done." The statement carried the highest compliment a man like Hargrove could offer. Reeves accepted it with a silent nod. "Under Harrington," the colonel asked. "Secure, exhausted, but without serious physical injuries." The information intact, Harrington revealed nothing of operational value to Volkov, but the situation is more complicated than we initially understood. Hargrove's eyes narrowed slightly. "Debrief in 20 minutes. Medical checks first." As the colonel turned to leave, Reeves called after him. "Sir, we made contact on the Ghost Channel." Hargrove froze mid-step, his back to Reeves' shoulders suddenly rigid. When he turned, his weathered face held an expression Reeves had never seen on the legendary commander, something between hope and fear. "Carter." The name emerged as barely a whisper. "She saved our lives, sir. Multiple times. Tactical guidance, overwatch, direct fire support. She knows the mountains like she built them herself." "You saw her?" "Negative. Voice contact only." Reeves hesitated, then added, "She asked me to tell you she's still watching the old boundaries." Something flickered in Hargrove's eyes. Recognition, pain, perhaps even guilt before his professional mask returned. 20 minutes, Lieutenant. Full report." The debriefing room was secured beyond standard protocols. Armed guards stood outside and electronic countermeasures hummed softly from equipment positioned around the space. Whatever would be discussed required security beyond typical operational parameters. Reeves and his team sat on one side of the table, showered and in fresh uniforms, but still carrying the bone-deep fatigue of their ordeal. Hargrove sat opposite them, flanked by two men in civilian clothes, whom Reeves immediately identified as CIA by their careful neutrality and watchful eyes. Under Harrington occupied the far end of the table, looking improved after medical attention, but still haunted by his captivity. "This debriefing is classified Scarlet Umbra," Hargrove began without preamble. "Nothing discussed leaves this room. The official record will show a successful extraction of a Department of Energy consultant captured by standard Taliban forces. No mention of Phantom Cell Volkov or any other details I'm about to address." The CIA men placed recording devices on the table, activating them with synchronized precision. "Confirmed Scarlet Umbra protocols in effect," one stated. "Timestamp authenticated." Hargrove nodded toward Reeves. "Lieutenant, your report." For the next 30 minutes, Reeves detailed the mission chronologically: the helicopter crash, the pursuit, the firefight at the compound, their desperate journey to Widow's Peak, and finally the mysterious assistance they received. "And you believe this voice was Elizabeth Carter?" one of the CIA men asked, his tone carefully neutral. "She never confirmed her identity," Reeves replied. "But her knowledge of classified Cold War infrastructure, her familiarity with Widow's Peak, and her exceptional marksmanship all align with what Colonel Hargrove briefed us about Carter." "Marksmanship details," the second CIA man prompted. Reynolds leaned forward, professional interest overcoming her usual reserve. "Shots at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters in mountain conditions. Perfect wind calls through fog and variable temperatures. Shot sequencing that demonstrated complete mastery of tactical prioritization." "Could have been any skilled sniper," the first CIA man suggested. Reynolds shook her head. "Not with that rifle signature. The report was distinctive, likely a custom-built system based on the M40A1 platform, but significantly modified. The sound profile matches descriptions of specialized weapons developed for the Artemis program." Hargrove's eyebrow raised fractionally at Reynolds' knowledge of classified weapon systems, but he said nothing. "And the Ghost Channel?" the second CIA man asked. "The frequency was active operational after all these years." "Fully functional," Donovan confirmed. "Transmission quality was exceptional despite the mountain terrain. almost as if the system had been maintained. The CIA men exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Dr. Harrington, Hargrove said, turning the conversation, "Please explain what you revealed to Lieutenant Reeves about the Siberian facility." The physicist straightened in his chair, hands clasped before him on the table. "During my captivity, Volkov questioned me extensively about Project Jericho." The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Both CIA men tensed, and even Hargrove's composed expression faltered. "Project Jericho was officially terminated in 1987, one CIA man stated flatly. "The research was officially terminated," Harrington corrected. "The theoretical models weren't. We continued simulation work until 992, when all remaining documentation was supposedly destroyed." Supposedly, Hargrove noted the qualification. Harrington nodded. "Volkov believes, and I have reason to agree, that critical research data survived. He mentioned a facility in Siberia where the Soviets conducted parallel research based on intelligence they'd gathered from our program. The facility was reportedly destroyed during the Soviet collapse, but Volkov seems convinced that something valuable remains there." "What exactly does he want from this facility?" Reeves asked. "The triggering mechanism," Harrington replied simply. Both programs struggled with creating a stable triggering system for miniaturized devices. The American solution was theoretically sound, but practically unfeasible with 1980s technology. The Soviet approach was cruder, but potentially more viable with modern refinements. "And you believe Volkov is trying to combine the two approaches," Hargrove concluded. "It's the logical assumption. He already has extensive knowledge of the American research. What he lacks is confirmation of exactly how far the Soviet program progressed before the facility was destroyed." The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. A rogue former KGB officer with the knowledge to create untraceable nuclear devices was the nightmare scenario that had haunted intelligence agencies since the Soviet collapse. "This is why extraction priority was elevated to alpha," Reynolds realized aloud, "not just for Harrington, but for what he represents." "Correct, Sergeant," Hargrove confirmed. "The moment Volkov's involvement was confirmed, this became a matter of highest national security." The debriefing continued for another hour, each team member providing detailed accounts of specific aspects of the mission. Finally, Hargrove dismissed Donovan, Reynolds, and Harrington, leaving only Reeves and the two CIA men. "Now, Clam," Hargrove said once the door closed, "tell me about Carter." Reeves recounted every detail of their interactions with Ghost Spotter, the precision of her tactical guidance, the impossibility of her shots, the intimate knowledge she possessed of Cold War operations. "She could have joined us for extraction," Reeves concluded. "I offered it directly. She declined." "Of course she did," one CIA man muttered. Hargrove shot him a warning glance before returning his attention to Reeves. "Did she give any indication of her current status?" "Her activities in the region. Only that her war continues. She seemed to be operating independently with no mention of organizational affiliation." The colonel nodded as if this confirmed something he already suspected. "Lieutenant, what I'm about to tell you remains classified beyond the level of this debriefing. The existence of this information is itself classified. Are we clear, Crystal, sir?" Hargrove leaned back, his eyes focusing somewhere beyond the room's walls. "Elizabeth Carter was the most successful operative in the Artemis program. Marine Scout sniper with natural talent beyond anything the Corps had seen. The program recruited her in 1981, trained her for deep cover operations in Soviet territory." One of the CIA men slid a folder across the table. Inside was a single photograph, a woman in her 30s, dark hair pulled back, eyes that seemed to evaluate the camera itself. Something in her expression reminded Reeves of Reynolds, the same calculating precision, the same controlled intensity. Between 1982 and 1980, Carter conducted 17 operations behind the Iron Curtain. Eliminations, intelligence gathering, asset extraction, all officially disavowed, all extraordinarily successful. "Then something went wrong," Reeves guessed. Hargrove nodded. "Operation Winter Shadow, 1985. Carter was deployed to investigate rumors of the Soviet equivalent to Project Jericho, the same Siberian facility Harrington mentioned." The colonel's expression darkened with memory. "The operation was compromised. Carter's extraction team never arrived. Official record states she was captured and executed by KGB counterintelligence officers." Dmitry Volkov, Reeves realized. Then a rising star in the KGB's third directorate. His involvement in Carter's alleged execution earned him significant advancement. But she wasn't executed, Reeves said. Apparently not. Hargrove exchanged glances with the CIA men before continuing. 3 years after her reported death, we began receiving intelligence from deep within Soviet territory. Critical information that saved American lives and compromised Soviet operations. The intelligence came through a channel established exclusively for Carter's use, what you know as the Ghost Channel. Why wasn't she extracted? Reeves asked, professional indignation creeping into his voice. No operator should be abandoned in hostile territory. We tried, twice. Both extraction teams disappeared. Hargrove's voice carried the weight of command decisions that had cost lives. After the second failure, a message came through the Ghost Channel: no more teams. I work alone now. The room fell silent, the implications settling over Reeves like a physical weight. Carter had been operating independently in hostile territory for decades, long after the Cold War supposedly ended, long after her country had officially declared her dead. Following the Soviet collapse, communications became irregular, one of the CIA men added, but certain operations in the region would receive unexpected assistance when situations became critical. Precise sniper fire from unseen positions, intelligence delivered through unexpected channels, always untraceable, always deniable. The Ghost Spotter, Reeves said. A legend among special operators in the region, Hargrove confirmed. A guardian angel for Americans in impossible situations. Most dismissed it as tactical folklore. But you knew better, Reeves observed. That's why you insisted we carry the PRC-90s. You knew she was out there. I hoped, Hargrove corrected. I haven't had confirmed contact with Carter in over 15 years, but I know her operational patterns. When I learned Volkov was active in the same region where you were deploying, I calculated the probability that she would be watching. What happens now? Reeves asked. We just leave her out there. Hargrove's expression hardened. Officially, Elizabeth Carter died in Soviet custody in 1985. That remains her status in every government database. The events at Widow's Peak will be attributed to conventional Special Forces assets in your after-action report. And unofficially, the colonel considered his response carefully. Unofficially, Lieutenant, I believe we both owe her a debt that can't be acknowledged or repaid. The best we can do is respect her choice to continue her mission as she sees fit. 3 days later, Reeves stood beside Torres's hospital bed, watching the monitors track the steady improvement in the younger man's condition. The surgeries had been successful, the prognosis for full recovery, excellent. Any word on when I can rejoin the team? Torres asked, his voice stronger than it had been since their extraction. Doctor says 6 weeks minimum, probably closer to 8, Reeves replied, knowing Torres would push to have that timeline. Bullshit, I'll be operational in 4. You'll be operational when medical clears you. That's an order. Torres grinned, the familiar banter reassuring after the intensity of their shared experience. What about Harrington? He shipped stateside yet? Tomorrow, under heavy security. Whatever he knows, a lot of people want to make sure it stays contained. And Volkov, Reeves shook his head. Wind. Satellite surveillance lost him crossing into Pakistan. Intelligence suggests he has resources throughout the region. He could be anywhere by now. He'll be back, Torres predicted grimly. Men like that don't just walk away. If he does, we'll be ready. Torres hesitated, then asked the question Reeves had been expecting since their rescue. Sir, about Ghost Spotter. Was she real? I mean, I heard the voice, saw the results of her shooting. But sometimes I wonder if we all hallucinated her out of desperation. Reeves considered his answer carefully, mindful of the classification restrictions Hargrove had placed on Carter's existence. What matters is that we completed our mission and got our people out. The details will make a good story someday when enough time has passed. Fair enough, Torres accepted. But for what it's worth, I believe she was real. And I owe her a beer if our paths ever cross. I think she'd appreciate the sentiment, Reeves said with a smile. Get some rest. I'll check on you tomorrow. Leaving the hospital ward, Reeves found Reynolds waiting in the corridor, her compact frame leaning against the wall with the casual alertness that never seemed to leave her. Torres giving the doctors hell yet? She asked. Trying to. They've got him outnumbered. They walked together toward the barracks, the evening air carrying the familiar sense of jet fuel dust and distant mountains that defined Bagram. I've been reassigned, Reynolds said after a moment of comfortable silence. Effective next week. Special training cadre at Quantico. Sniper instructor. She nodded. Apparently my unique combat experience makes me valuable for the training program. Reeves understood the subtext. After what they'd witnessed at Widow's Peak, Reynolds' perspective on the art of long-range precision shooting had evolved. Whatever she had learned from observing Ghost Spotter's work, the military wanted it integrated into their training programs. "You'll be excellent," he said simply. "What about you? Orders cut yet?" "Meeting with Hargrove tomorrow. I expect I'll know more then." They parted ways at the female officers' quarters, Reynolds offering a crisp nod that carried more meaning than any elaborate farewell could have. Their shared experience had forged a connection beyond conventional military camaraderie, the bond of those who had glimpsed something that defied official explanation. The following morning found Reeves in Hargrove's office, a Spartan space that reflected its occupants' utilitarian approach to command. The colonel sat behind a desk bare except for a single folder in the antiquated PRC-90 radio they had carried to Widow's Peak. "Lieutenant," Hargrove acknowledged, gesturing to the chair opposite. "Your orders." Reeves accepted the folder, reviewing its contents with measured surprise. "Special Liaison to Joint Special Operations Command Intelligence Division." "Sir, this is significantly outside my typical operational role." "These aren't typical times, Lieutenant." Hargrove leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "What you experienced at Widow's Peak isn't an isolated incident. There are ghosts throughout the battle space, remnants of old conflicts, operators who never stood down when the politicians declared victory. Like Carter." "Like Carter," Hargrove confirmed, "and like Volkov. The Cold War created a particular type of warrior on both sides, people who operated in shadows so deep that they couldn't find their way back to the light when the conflict officially ended. And my role in this, recognition and response. Your experience gives you perspective that few operators possess. You've seen what happens when the shadows of the past intersect with current operations. JSOC needs that insight." Reeves considered the implications. The assignment would take him out of direct combat roles, but place him at the nexus of special operations planning across multiple theaters. "There's something else you should know," Hargrove continued. 48 hours after your extraction, a Phantom Cell operations center near the Pakistan border was hit. 8 confirmed kills, all senior leadership. No survivors, no witnesses, no claims of responsibility. Carter. The ballistic evidence suggests a custom M40A1 rifle firing specialized ammunition. The pattern of the assault matches her operational signature. She's hunting Volkov's organization, Reeves realized. Methodically, with patience and precision that only comes from decades of experience. Hargrove picked up the PRC-90 radio, turning it in his hands almost reverently. "This was recovered from your equipment. I'm authorizing you to retain it as part of your new duties." "Sir Meyer." "The frequency is still active, Lieutenant, and while officially the United States government has no knowledge of relationship with or responsibility for any American citizen conducting unauthorized operations in the region, unofficially someone should be listening if she ever calls for help." The responsibility settled on Reeves like a physical weight. "I understand, sir." "I thought you might." Hargrove extended his hand, the gesture both a dismissal and an acknowledgement of Reeves' new status. "Good hunting, Lieutenant." 3 weeks later, Reeves sat in the secure briefing room at JSOC headquarters while reviewing intelligence from 5 different theaters of operation. His new role gave him unprecedented access to information that few outside the intelligence community ever saw: patterns of conflict, movements of key figures, and the shadowy ecosystems that flourished in the spaces between official wars. A junior analyst approached, placing a flash drive on the table beside him. "Priority intelligence, sir. Just came in from Langley." Reeves inserted the drive, entering his security credentials to access the encrypted contents. The file that opened contained satellite imagery of a remote region in eastern Siberia, date stamped 3 days earlier. The thermal overlay showed an installation partially buried in the side of a mountain with minimal external signatures, but clear evidence of ongoing activity. The accompanying intelligence brief was succinct. "Confirmed facility Jericho SOS operational. Volkov presence verified. Activity consistent with materials research." Reeves stared at the image, understanding immediately what he was seeing. The Siberian facility that Harrington had mentioned, the Soviet counterpart to Project Jericho, wasn't a relic of Cold War history. It was active, with Volkov personally overseeing its operation. He reached for his secure phone, dialing a number few had access to. This is Reeves. I need to speak with Hargrove immediately. Authentication code Sierra Echo Alpha Lima 57. Within an hour, he was in a secure video conference with Hargrove and representatives from multiple intelligence agencies. The satellite imagery was displayed on the main screen with additional intelligence reports scrolling on secondary displays. Confirmation is absolute, a CIA analyst was saying. Spectral analysis of energy signatures matches theoretical models for the type of research conducted under Project Jericho. They're not just exploring the old facility, they're actively continuing in the work. Estimated timeline. Hargrove asked, his face grim on the video feed. Based on supply movements and energy consumption, we project 12 to 18 months before they achieve a viable prototype, possibly sooner if they've recovered more of the original research than we initially estimated. Options. This from the National Security Advisor joining from Washington. A military analyst outlined conventional responses, everything from precision airstrikes to special forces insertion. Each option carried significant risks, from international incidents with Russia to the potential for catastrophic release of nuclear materials. The facility's location complicates matters, the analyst concluded. It's technically within Russian territory, though, in a region where government control is questionable at best. Any official American military action would trigger diplomatic consequences we're not prepared to manage. So we do nothing, Reeves found himself asking. Watch while Volkov develops weapons that could change the fundamental balance of power. We're exploring diplomatic channels, the National Security Advisor replied, sharing intelligence with appropriate Russian authorities who might have as much interest as we do in shutting down a rogue operation on their soil. With respect, sir, by the time those diplomatic channels produce results, Volkov could have operational prototypes. The conversation continued in this vein for another hour, with various experts presenting analyses and options, none of them satisfactory. When the meeting finally concluded, Reeves remained in the secure room reviewing the imagery again, with a growing sense of unease. His secure phone rang the display showing Hargrove's direct line. "You're thinking about Carter," the colonel said, without preamble, when Reeves answered. "She operated in Siberia during the Cold War. She might have direct knowledge of the facility." "She might," Hargrove agreed, "but we have no way to contact her. The ghost channel is receive only unless she initiates transmission." Reeves considered this. What if we could get her attention? Create a situation that would put her on alert, such as an intelligence leak, carefully crafted information about Widow's Peak released through channels Phantom Cell is known to monitor. Make them think we're sending another team into their territory. To what end? Draw out Volkov's people. Where they appear, she'll be watching. The silence that followed told Reeves that Hargrove was seriously considering the proposal. Finally, the colonel spoke. "It's unorthodox, Lieutenant, and technically outside protocol. Like carrying obsolete radios into combat, sir." A rare chuckle came through the line. "I'll make some calls. No promises." 2 days later, the trap was set. Intelligence about a fictional special operations team allegedly preparing to infiltrate the Hindu Kush region was accidentally leaked through channels known to be compromised by Phantom Cell. Satellite surveillance was realigned to provide maximum coverage of the area, and signals intelligence teams were placed on high alert for any communication on the ghost channel frequency. For 72 hours, nothing happened. Then, just as Reeves was beginning to think the plan had failed, a signals analyst burst into his office. "Sir, we have transmission on the target frequency." In the secure communications center, Reeves donned headphones as the analyst played back the recorded message. Through layers of encryption and static came a voice he recognized, immediately measured, precise, unmistakably, Carter. "To whoever baited this hook, clumsy but effective, I'm listening." Reeves looked to Hargrove, who had joined them via secure video link. The colonel nodded once, authorizing response. Keying the PRC-90 radio they had connected to their systems, Reeves spoke carefully. "Ghost Spotter, this is Fox Leader. We have a situation that requires your specific expertise." A long pause followed, long enough that Reeves feared they had lost the connection. Then, "Fox Leader, unexpected. I trust your team recovered fully." "Affirmative. Torres is already complaining about medical restrictions." A sound came through that might have been a short laugh, quickly controlled. "Why the theatrics to reach me? The ghost channel works both ways." We needed confirmation you were still monitoring. What I'm about to share can't go into the void without knowing someone's listening. I'm listening. Reeves took a deep breath, aware of the classified information he was about to share with someone who officially didn't exist. Jericho S is active. Volkov is on site. Production timeline estimated at 12 to 18 months. The silence that followed carried a weight Reeves could almost physically feel. When Carter finally responded, her voice had changed harder, colder, the voice of someone confronting an old nightmare. Location confirmed. Affirmative. Eastern Siberia. Original facility partially reconstructed. You have imagery. Reeves looked to Hargrove, who nodded again. Affirmative. Can you receive data transmission on this frequency? Negative, but I know someone who can. Stand by for alternate communication protocol. The transmission ended abruptly. For several minutes, the assembled intelligence team waited in tense silence. Then a message appeared on Reeves's secure terminal routed through so many proxy servers that its origin was effectively untraceable. Secure transmission established. Send data package to attached address. Encryption key follows him. Hargrove, watching via video link, gave the final authorization. Send it all, Lieutenant. Everything we have on Jericho S. The data package, satellite imagery, intelligence assessments, biographical information on key Phantom Cell personnel, was transmitted to the provided address. Within moments of confirmation that the transmission was complete, the connection dissolved, leaving no electronic trace of its existence. For 3 days, they heard nothing. Satellite surveillance of the Siberian facility showed no changes in activity patterns. Phantom Cell communications continued without any indication they were aware of American knowledge of their operation. Then on the fourth day, everything changed. Reeves was awakened at bureau by his secure phone. The duty officer's voice was tight with controlled urgency. Sir, we have a situation at the Siberia site. You need to see this immediately. In the operations center, multiple screens displayed real-time satellite imagery of the facility. Even through the thermal overlay, Reeves could see that something catastrophic had occurred. One section of the mountain installation had collapsed entirely while multiple fires burned throughout the remaining structures. What happened? He demanded. Unknown, sir. First indications approximately 40 minutes ago. No missile launch detected, no aircraft in the vicinity, no seismic activity consistent with natural disaster. Survivors. Thermal imaging shows personnel evacuating through emergency exits. Approximately 60 individuals accounted for moving away from the facility in multiple directions. Volkov. The analyst hesitated. Unconfirmed, sir, but there's something else you should see. He brought up a different satellite feed focusing on a ridge approximately 2 kilometers from the facility. The thermal signature of a single individual was visible, moving with deliberate purpose away from the installation. Sniper position, Reeves said, immediately recognizing the tactical setup. Yes, sir, and there's this. The analyst switched to a signals intelligence report. Amid the chaos of emergency communications from the facility, a single transmission had been detected on an unusual frequency, the Ghost Channel. The message was brief and coded using an obsolete CIA cipher that had taken their best crypt analysts 20 minutes to crack. Its contents were simple and devastating. Jericho's neutralized, research data destroyed, Volkov wounded but mobile. Hunt continues. Reeves exchanged glances with Hargrove, who had arrived minutes after the alert went out. The colonel's expression showed a complex mixture of emotions, professional satisfaction at the neutralization of a threat coupled with personal concern for the operative who had executed the mission. She did in 48 hours what we couldn't figure out how to do legally in 2 weeks, Hargrove observed quietly. The advantage of not officially existing, Reeves replied. Get me a full assessment as soon as possible. Hargrove ordered the intelligence team. I want to know exactly what happened at that facility, how it was accomplished, and what the Russians know about it. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Hargrove drew Reeves aside. You should know, he said in a low voice, that this isn't the end. Volkov has survived worse. As long as he lives, he'll pursue the Jericho research. And Carter will hunt him, Reeves concluded, until one of them doesn't walk away. That's how these old wars end, Lieutenant. Not with peace treaties and ceremonies, but with the last warrior standing. 1 month later, Reeves stood in Arlington National Cemetery watching as a small group gathered around a previously unmarked grave. The headstone newly installed bore a simple inscription, Elizabeth Marie Carter, USMC 1948 to 1985. Operation Winter Shadow. Fidelis ad mortem. The ceremony was brief and unofficial, a small gesture of recognition for a warrior who remained officially dead. Among the attendants, Reeves recognized senior military officers, retired CIA personnel, and a few active special operators who had been granted special permission to attend. Hargrove stood at the head of the gathering, his tall frame unbowed by age or the weight of memory. When the chaplain completed the brief service, the colonel placed a single item on the headstone, a worn patch bearing the insignia of the Marine Scout snipers. As the gathering dispersed, Reeves remained behind studying the headstone with its deliberate fiction of finality. Hargrove joined him, both men standing in respectful silence for several moments. "She would appreciate the gesture," Reeves finally said, "even knowing she's still out there." "It's not for her," Hargrove replied. "It's for us, for the record, a place to acknowledge what can't be officially recognized." "Do you think she'll ever come in from the cold?" The colonel considered the question, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon where the spring sun was setting over the endless rows of white markers. "Some ghosts can't find their way home, Lieutenant. Their war becomes their identity. Their mission becomes their life." "A hard way to live," Reeves observed. "Is it living?" Hargrove asked quietly. "Or just surviving?" "I've asked myself that question about Carter for decades." They walked together toward the cemetery exit, leaving behind the symbolic grave of a woman who still hunted in the world's shadows. Neither spoke again until they reached the gates, where Hargrove paused, looking back at the vast field of heroes. "The ghost channel is still active," he said. "She's still out there watching the old boundaries. And as long as people like Volkov exist, perhaps that's exactly where she needs to be." "Not alone, though," Reeves replied. "Not anymore." Hargrove nodded, understanding the commitment behind Reeves' words. "No, not alone." 6 months later, in a small Montana town far from the corridors of power construction, began on a new facility nestled against the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. The sign at the entrance identified it simply as Veterans Recovery Center, with no indication of its specialized mission or anonymous funding source. The center's first director, a retired military psychologist named Dr. James Morgan, found his appointment unusual. The position had come through channels typically reserved for high-security government projects, yet the facility itself was ostensibly a private nonprofit organization with no official government affiliation. Even more unusual was the center's focused specialized treatment for veterans of classified operations, particularly those suffering from psychological trauma related to long-term deep cover assignments, the kind of veterans who officially didn't exist. Morgan's first week as director brought another surprise: a secure computer terminal delivered by unmarked government vehicle, installed in his office by technicians who offered no identification beyond vague references to the agency. The terminal, they explained, would receive encrypted communications regarding potential patients in specialized treatment and protocols. On his third day, the terminal activated with a message: "Preparing list of initial patients. Special focus on veterans of Soviet theater operations, 1980 to 1990. Authorization: Reeves J. Foxleader." 2 days later, an unmarked envelope arrived on Morgan's desk. Inside was a handwritten note accompanied by a substantial bank draft from an offshore account. "For those who fought wars that never officially happened. For those who gave everything, including their identities. For the ghosts who still stand guard on forgotten boundaries." The note was unsigned, but paper-clipped to it was a small item that Morgan initially mistook for a coin. Closer examination revealed it to be a weathered metal pin, a Marine Corps insignia modified with the distinct crosshairs of a sniper's scope. That same evening, thousands of miles away, Lieutenant Jack Reeves sat in his office at JSOC headquarters, reviewing satellite imagery of a remote region in the Caucasus Mountains. Intelligence suggested Volkov had been sighted there 3 days earlier, presumably rebuilding his organization after the Siberia disaster. The secure line on his desk rang Hargrove's private number. "The Montana facility is operational," the colonel reported without preamble. "First patient scheduled for next month." "Good," Reeves replied simply. "Any word from our mutual friend?" "Nothing direct, but 3 Phantom Cell lieutenants were found dead in Tbilisi last week. Ballistics match her signature." "She's closing the net." "Methodically, as she always has." Hargrove paused, then added, "The ghost channel remains open, day and night." Someone is always listening, Reeves assured him. After the call ended, Reeves unlocked his desk drawer and removed the PRC-90 radio he kept there, service charged and permanently tuned to the frequency that had saved his team on Widow's Peak. He placed it on his desk, a silent reminder of obligations that transcended official duty rosters and command structures. Outside his window, the lights of the operations center cast a blue glow against the night sky. Inside, analysts and operators worked around the clock, monitoring global threats, planning responses, maintaining the visible machinery of American military power. But Reeves understood now what Hargrove had known for decades, that beyond the official operations, beyond the acknowledged wars, another layer of conflict continued. In that shadow realm, the ghosts of old wars still moved, still fought, still honored commitments made in another era. And one ghost in particular, a Marine sniper who officially died in Soviet custody in 1985, continued her solitary mission, hunting the enemies of her country long after her country had officially abandoned her. The truest measure of duty, Reeves reflected, wasn't what you did when ordered, recognized, and supported. It was what you continued to do when the orders stopped, the recognition never came, and you stood alone on the boundary between light and darkness. In that space, Elizabeth Carter still stood guard. And as long as the ghost channel remained active, she would know that someone remembered, someone listened, and someone understood that some wars never truly end until the last warrior lays down their weapon. Reeves placed his hand on the ancient radio, a gesture of silent acknowledgement across thousands of miles and decades of conflict. Then he returned to his work, knowing that somewhere in the world's shadows, the ghost spotter continued hers. The hunt continued. The duty endured. And the ghosts of wars past ensured that the nightmares they had faced would never reach the world of daylight and official records. That was their purpose, their burden, their eternal mission. Until the last echo of the last shot faded into history's silence.